All right, now, away from that, the 2026 new lawyer opening ceremony took place this week at High Court to mark the official launch of the legal year. The event traditionally marks the formal commencement of court business. However, the event was boycotted by the Uganda Law Society, arguing that they did not want to be passive observers at an event of constitutional and professional significance. We are now joined by Anthony Asiimwe. Anthony is the current Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, to understand why they boycotted the 2026 new lawyer event, plus the launch of their election observation report for 2026. Anthony, good evening. Good to have you.
Good evening. Good to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Let's start from there. Why did you boycott the event? Why the boycott?
Well, like you've said, we refuse to be passive attendees. It looked like a continuation of what you saw last year. Traditionally, every beginning of year, there's this opening of the new law year where the judiciary and the members of the bar, the lawyers in the country, come together to discuss issues affecting administration of justice and where we are going in that year. Now, if you remember last year, on the 7th of February, at the High Court grounds, the Chief Justice then, the former Chief Justice Onyidolo, denied the President Isaac Semakade a chance to speak. Yet he was on the agenda. You know, the agenda was very clear. The speech of the President, Uganda Law Society, who is the head of the bar. Now, when the time came, they arbitrarily removed us from the from the entire agenda,
rundown of
and we couldn't speak. It was a bit embarrassing because you cannot deny the public that opportunity to hear from the members of the bar, because we represent not just the lawyers but the public on such events. So this year it comes again. We have a new regime. We are assuming that maybe the new leadership is going to think differently. And again, the Law Society, the National Bar Association, is not invited as an institution for this event. Much as looking at the program, there are areas where they expect lawyers to be present. I was actually also invited in my individual capacity as Asiimwe Anthony, and I reached out. I said, hey, I've looked at the program you've shared, and I don't see any space for Uganda Law Society to speak. Yet, traditionally, we must speak. We must have an opportunity to speak. And it was not resolved. So we figured it would be useless for us to go there and sit and watch when the public needs to hear our say on administration of justice in the country. So we did not just boycott. They held their opening with the new lawyer ceremony. We held our opening with the new lawyer ceremony at the headquarters, at the ULS house, and we spoke to what we believed the public needed to listen to, needed to see. And
Anthony, isn't your stand worsening the relationship between the Law Society and the judiciary leadership? Yet people would think it's time for reconciliation of the sort.
Well, if you followed what happened, I actually, after discussing with the governing council, we did reach out. I reached out physically through writing before the event, just like what happened last year. I think last year around the 16th of January, we wrote to the Chief Justice and said we need to meet before this date so that we compare notes and agree on what to speak about. This same time, when I saw this and some individual members of the bar being invited in their individual capacities, I reached out to the Chief Registrar personally, physically, and even wrote saying, hey, this is a bit, going overboard. Why don't we sit and resolve this? They decided to give a cold shoulder, and we've always extended an event because we believe the bar and the bench are very important institutions, both the judges and the lawyers. So none can work in isolation. We must work together, and we believe that that is how we keep trying to reach out to them. But the challenge is, if we have a challenge where the judiciary thinks they have an upper hand, and because they sit the other side where they make decisions, and they will not allow us to speak. If you remember last year, the Chief Justice saying, you cannot come to my compound and you want to speak when I don't allow you to speak. And that is a bad signal. That is a public office. It is not any person's compound. So it's an intentional move to silence the voice of the bar. When you try to silence the voice of the bar, you're silencing the voice of the public, of the citizens, because you have a statutory mandate to speak for the citizens.
Well, Anthony, there are also reports this week that the President Isaac Semakade for the Law Society, who went to exile, escaping serving a 2-year prison sentence for contempt of court, had requested for a presidential pardon which effort was reportedly rejected by the Advisory Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy. What is your take on this development?
I think that is wrong information because I don't remember the president. I speak to President Semakade on a daily basis. Every step we take as council, we agree. We have a resolution to that. So he did not at any one point request for that prerogative of mercy. And if you remember, his policy is no apology. He will never apologize for saying the right thing, for standing with the truth.
Okay, and let's talk about your election observation report 2026. What are some of the key takeaways that a viewer should get to know here on the Talk of the Nation?
The takeaway generally is that we saw an election which is not in any way close to an election that is envisaged under the Constitution and under the laws. It was never a free and fair election. No wonder we saw the lowest turnout, voter turnout, because election period doesn't, it begins right from the time of nominations. We saw the arbitrary arrests, the torture, the military involvement in politics, where even during campaigns, some rallies are being blocked. We saw police using dogs. This alone scared away the voters. And then towards the election, we saw the state applying what we would call elements of a state of emergency. You're shutting down internet, causing that blackout. You're suspending civil society organizations. These things do not just happen. It's a pattern. And the state, I think, is just, they just not come out clearly to say we're in a state of emergency. And then we saw what happened. Every process, the way the elections were conducted was completely wrong. And even in the aftermath, right now as we speak, I believe the home of the main opposition candidate, Honorable Chagulanyi, is still under siege. In fact, the reports I got is that the security has now taken over. The members of the family are not there. So how would that happen before, during, and the aftermath? And all these arrests we saw, we are now seeing the Zedrigas, the deputy president being produced in court after being abducted and disappearing for weeks, simply because they are political opponents. So it sends a very bad picture, especially in a young democracy. And when you look at it as a whole, we believe the Electoral Commission, one, failed us as a country. But then again, we believe it was just a sham generally. Much as we have, these figures, including even, you see what the judiciary is also doing in some areas where we're having vote recounts contradicting themselves, even judicial officers of a lower rank messing up the system. So it's like a normal citizen feels there is no need to participate in an election, and it is very dangerous for a young democracy like Uganda.
Well, we saw lawyer Malema Bilizi. He's currently on remand for allegedly demeaning the new Chief Justice, Flavian Zaija, on social media platforms. In fact, the Chief Justice has vowed to crack down on whoever will use social media to attack court officials. What is your position on such a development?
I think our position also as the governing council of the Uganda Law Society has been very clear that the Chief Justice went overboard, and I personally actually did write to him seeking for a meeting to have a discussion on how we can resolve some of these things. First of all, that coming from the Chief Justice of the country, it has so many problems. Number one, we are seeing a Chief Justice who has failed to differentiate between the office of the judiciary as an institution of government, with UJOA, Uganda Judicial Officers Association, because now you're lobbying for policy of protecting judicial officers as workers, because UJOA is there like a workers' union, and you're using a judicial pulpit, which is very wrong, because under normal circumstances, the person in his capacity should not be standing on the judicial pulpit and making such comments for various reasons. Number one, it is against the sub judice rule. The actions he's talking about, social media and speech, are already the subject of a pending petition before a constitutional court. We have constitutional petition number 42 of 2022, where we're challenging these provisions in the Computer Misuse Act, the amendment, under the same, by the way, if you remember, Malema Bilizi was arrested 2 days before that date. And in that, when you look at the charge sheet, the Chief Justice himself, Zaija, is the complainant, because it is alleged that whatever Malema Bilizi said against him is hate speech, and and that is why he's behind bars. Now, a Chief Justice making such comments when we have a case pending in court challenging the law under which these people are being charged, in itself creates doubt because you will not trust. It's like you're prejudging what is likely to happen there. Secondly, again, we should not try to create a specific class that is immune to scrutiny.
Okay.
Even if it means insults. I mean, we've had cases, Andrew Mwenda here, where the court was very clear. There's already a court decision that people holding such offices should have thick skins. In fact, they should not even be the ones complaining about being scrutinized. And if the Chief Justice wants to use that alone to create this kind of a special case that judges should not be criticized, I mean, even the president can be insulted according to court, and we have court decisions. Okay. But then the third issue is the aspect of impartiality. Because think of Malema Birizi, who was arrested 2 days before he's appearing before court. The Chief Justice, who is the complainant in that case, stands on the pulpit and he says we shall not tolerate that. That means he's creating policy in a way, and that means the judicial officers, I mean, every day are going to be having, the magistrates are going to be hearing only cases where judges have been, insulted, they are not happy with the comments of certain people on social media. So, the Constitution is very clear. It protects freedom of speech, and the court has ruled on that. Okay. And we feel these attempts the Chief Justice is making are absurd because it will affect the impartiality of court, even at least in the eyes of the members of the public. So we actually did call upon him to abandon that, whether it is actual or seemingly perceived policy that he has created before we go so far. Well,
Anthony, lastly, when you look at the number of supporters of different political parties that were detained before and after the polls, how supportive have you been, and what kind of support are you offering, especially for people who have no legal representative?
If you remember, I think about 3 days to elections, we set up what we call the Rapid Response Unit, and our Rapid Response Unit is made of lawyers who are available to give free legal services, pro bono services, and we put a toll-free line. So throughout the election period, during and after, we kept on receiving calls on that toll-free line, and we've had lawyers running around the country trying to represent the people who have been arrested at police, in courts. And I must say it was overstretching, because by the time we launched our report, we had registered about 330 files, which are ongoing. Some of them had appeared in court and charged, others have not been charged. We had various habeas corpus applications, and we felt, because we're the only people on ground. Remember, other civil society organizations had been suspended by the National Bureau, NGO Bureau, by the NGO Bureau, and we felt, as the Uganda Law Society, we have a mandate to assist members of the public in matters touching the law, and we are spread across the country. We had lawyers in different districts who are running, using their own resources, having, spending their time and energy to go and give these people legal representation, because unfortunately, most of the people who are arrested, you'll find students, school-going students. You find the majority of them are poor. They cannot even afford services of a lawyer. And also don't forget that we're in a blackout. Some people are just disappearing, and people would call and they say, we don't know where a person went. So we had lawyers running around the country. All that is in our report. And it has not ended up to now. We have pending people. You saw the people bringing a petition with a list of over 3,000 other people who are in different prisons.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Anthony. And Anthony Asiimwe is the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society. He has been joining us, having conversations on the new lawyer opening ceremony, issues rotating around the relationship with the judiciary, and of course, the developments from the Uganda Law Society. You're still watching NTV Weekend Edition. We return shortly with the latest from the world of sport. Stick